I have been using Atomos Ninja 5 monitors recorders for a very long time. They became a constant part of my kit, regardless of which camera brand I was working with. But the times have changed. Managing SSDs and those plastic caddies all the time became too much hassle for me. And after some 6 years, I moved away from it. I started recording to SD cards or directly to portable SSD drives via USB-C with my Lumix cameras. Atomos Ninja TX came out, and on paper it looks amazing, but it was just too expensive for me and I wouldn't use half of its features. It simply wasn't for me. And then we got this from Atomos, finally. This is the Ninja RAW. But here's the thing, I don't shoot RAW. So the question is, does this still make sense for someone like me? Coming from Ninja 5, this is not just a small upgrade. Pretty much everything here is new or significantly improved. This is a superb monitor. We now have a very bright 5.2-inch 1500 nit HDR screen. In my opinion, this is one of the nicest, if not the best screens on the video monitor you can buy. It's crisp, bright, accurate, and the touchscreen is very responsive. And honestly, this alone is already a big reason to use it. There's more to this than just the monitor though. One of the newer features brought over from the Shinobi 2 is camera control. And this time it actually works properly. It might feel a bit counterintuitive to control your camera from a monitor that's attached to it, but once your camera is rigged out like this, it actually makes a lot of sense. You can adjust shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and most importantly, your focus point. This doesn't work with every camera, so if you are buying this specifically for that feature, make sure to check compatibility first. I've been testing it with the Sony a7 IV and more importantly with my Lumix S1RII and S1R2, and everything was great. Being able to tap to focus from here is actually really useful. Just like with all Atomos monitors, you get all the monitoring tools you possibly need. Waveforms, zebras, vector scopes, LUTs, false color and L-zone are all here as well. This is something I rely on all the time, especially when shooting in log, and here it all works exactly as you'd expect. But the most important feature of any Ninja is the recorder. With the Ninja 5 you had to use SSDs in those specific Atomos caddies. That worked, but it wasn't the most convenient system. Now with Ninja RAW there is no SSD slot anymore. Instead you've got a CF Express Type B slot, but also 3 USB-C ports. And that means you can now connect a standard external SSD like this one directly to it. For me this is a big deal. SSD recording is simply more practical long-term than CF Express. It's more flexible, more affordable, and easier to manage. And importantly, even if you are using USB-C to control your camera, you can still connect an SSD to the monitor and record to it. Now let's talk about the formats. As the name suggests, you can record Apple ProRes RAW here, assuming your camera supports RAW output over HDMI. And the good thing is, you don't have to pay extra for it, it's all built in. But for me personally, RAW is not something I use. Everything I do is delivered online. I've never really needed that extra flexibility, and the file sizes and storage costs just don't make sense for what I do. So for me, this is not about RAW at all. Normally I shoot in standard Apple ProRes, and now you also get H.265 here as well. That gives you a lot more flexibility depending on the project. You can go high quality with ProRes or much more efficient with H.265. This is what actually makes sense for how I work. When it comes to exposure, I always try to get things right in camera. When shooting in log, I use my own base LUTs for Lumix and Sony. They're slightly darker on purpose, so I'm naturally pushed to overexpose a bit while filming. That way what I see on the monitor already looks right, and I don't have to rely on RAW to fix things later. As mentioned before, you also got 3 USB-C ports here, which gives you a lot of flexibility. You can connect it to your camera, record to SSD and power it all at the same time. There's still NPF battery slot for these batteries, but they're quite bulky. Being able to power this from a power bank or V-mount battery in a rig is much better solution in my opinion, especially if you are trying to keep things balanced and as light as possible. One more thing worth mentioning, audio. Every time I use Ninja Recorder, I record audio directly into it. The preamps on Atomos are just better than what you get in most of cameras, if not all cameras. So your sound quality improves straight away. And while we're talking about audio, I should mention these as well. I've been using Sony headphones for monitoring for years, but when they finally fell apart, I picked up these from Atomos, and they actually surprised me. They're very comfortable, they sound really good, and because they close back, they isolate sound nicely, which is great when you're monitoring on set. They're a little bit on the larger side, but overall, I've been really impressed and happy with them. Good headphones. Now let's talk about price of Ninja RAW. This comes in around £718 in UK or about $699 in the US, and that's just for the unit itself. Once you add CF Express cards or SSDs, batteries, cables, realistically looking closer to £900 or $1,000 to $1,200, $1,300 for a full setup. So it's definitely not cheap. For me, the value here really depends on how you're going to use it. If you just want the basic monitor, this is probably overkill. But if you actually take advantage of the recording options, the monitoring tools and things like camera control, then it starts to make a lot more sense. Now, it's not all perfect. This does make your setup bigger. There are more cables, more things to manage, and it's not something I would use in every situation. If I'm shooting something quick, run and gun, or just for YouTube, I'll often stick with internal recording. So where does that leave this? For me, this is not about RAW at all. It's about having a really good monitor, proper exposure tools, and recording options that actually make sense for how I shoot, like ProRes or even H.265. It's not something I would use all the time, every day. It does make your setup bigger, a bit more complicated. And if your camera already does everything you need internally, you probably don't need this. But in the right setup, when you actually need that extra control over your image, better monitoring, and more reliable recording options, this becomes a really powerful tool and probably a must-have. And honestly, I really like it. For the way I work, this fits really well, and yes, I would definitely recommend it. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful, give a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.